In round 2 of the Sinquefield Cup, Praggnanandhaa faced Fabiano Caruana. White opened with e4, and after c5, went for the Rosso limo with bishop to b5. Caruana responded flexibly with g6, but after the early exchange on c6, White pushed e5, immediately chasing the knight and gaining space in the center. The queens quickly came off after White's queen takes d8, leaving both sides with an imbalanced middle game. White placed a rook on d1 and developed actively, while Black countered with f5 and solid central control. Soon, White grabbed a pawn with bishop takes a7, but Black hit back with rook to b4 and steady counterplay against the queen side. As the rooks and minor pieces danced across the board, the game simplified into a tense endgame where activity mattered more than material. White's rooks pressed hard along the c-file, checking the Black king repeatedly, but Caruana defended resourcefully. After a long sequence of checks with no way forward, both players agreed to a repetition, sealing a well-fought draw between two of the world elite. In round 2 of the Sinquefield Cup, Levon Aronian took on Sam Sevian. White opened with e4, and after e6 and d4, the game entered the French defense. White immediately advanced with e5, gaining space, while Black challenged with c5 and natural development. The early middle game saw sharp play. After bishop to d7 and queen to a6, Black aimed pressure against the queen side, but White calmly castled and then brought the rook to f3, preparing flexibility in both attack and defense. When White's bishop landed on c5, the position looked dangerous for Black, yet Sevian countered with rook to f7 and bishop to a4, keeping the balance. The queen side soon exploded after White captured on a7, and Black replied with queen to a2 and queen takes b2. Both players launched tactical ideas, with White pushing b4 and later b5, while Black doubled rooks and prepared counterplay. The highlight came when White sacrificed with rook takes g7, forcing exchanges that led to queen takes f4 and then rook to a8 with check. Both kings were exposed, and the game simplified into an endgame where precision was critical. Black's passed d-pawn advanced dangerously, but White blockaded with rook to d1 and kept control. The players maneuvered with rooks and pawns, probing for weaknesses, yet neither side could break through. In the end, perpetual rook moves sealed the result. After a fighting battle filled with tactics and counterplay, the game concluded in a hard-fought draw. In round 2 of the Sinquefield Cup, Wesley So faced Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. White opened with d4, and after knight f6 and g6, the game quickly entered the Grunfeld defense. White expanded with e4, but after knight takes e3 and bishop g7, both sides followed well-known theory. The game heated up when White advanced with d5, and Black responded with knight to e5. Soon, rook to b1 and bishop d7 added tension, before White captured with rook takes b7. Black countered sharply with bishop to a4 and queen takes a2, winning back material. Both players traded heavily. Queen takes c2, rook takes e7, and then rook to c7 kept up the pressure. White pushed e6, but after bishop takes e4 and rook d7, the game clarified into a balanced middle game. The queenside pawns rolled forward with a5, a4, and eventually a3, but White managed to hold with rook a3 and rook exchanges. The final phase saw both sides shuffling rooks between c and files, unable to break through. After repeated moves, the players agreed to draw in a tense and accurate battle. In round 2 of the Sinquefield Cup, Alireza Firouzja squared off against Jan-Krzysztof Duda. What began as a classical Ruy Lopez soon spiraled into a wild tactical battle. White opened with pawn to e4, and after pawn to e5, knight f3, and bishop to b5, the familiar Spanish defense appeared on the board. But Black was ambitious, striking early with knight takes e4, immediately testing white's preparation. White countered with pawn to d4, and the board flared open. The first fireworks came on move 11, when black boldly sacrificed with knight takes f2. After rook takes f2 and bishop takes f2 check, the white king was dragged into the open, forced to capture back on f2. Black followed with pawn to f6 and bishop to g4, looking to trap the king in the center. But white calmly regrouped, retreating the knight to e3, and later pushing b4 to kickstart queenside play. The momentum shifted dramatically with knight to d5. Suddenly white's pieces sprang to life. After bishop, e3, and queen to h5, the pressure on the black king became suffocating. Black tried to hold with bishop to g8 and pawn to h6, but white's pieces kept circling closer. The sacrificed bishop takes h6 cracked open the defenses, and after a series of exchanges, the white queen infiltrated. By move 29, white had gobbled up pawns and taken control of the position. Still, black refused collapse. Counterplay appeared with rook to d4 and queen to h3, forcing white to defend with precision. But white's queen and knight worked in perfect harmony, shutting down the threats. By move 37, queens were exchanged, and the battle shifted to a complex rook and pawn endgame. What followed was a tense grind. Black pushed pawns on the queen side, while white maneuvered knights between e4, c5, and g5, constantly probing for weaknesses. Each side tried to improve the king, and the rooks danced between open files. For dozens of moves, the game teetered on a knife's edge, with both players shuffling, searching for the decisive breakthrough. Then came the turning point. On move 78, white captured knight takes b4, winning a critical pawn. From there, the path to victory became clearer. White slowly advanced, trading pieces when favorable and tightening a noose around the black king. By the time move 100 arrived, black was completely paralyzed. After white's king marched forward and knights dominated the board, black had no counterplay left. On move 100, facing inevitable defeat, black resigned. A marathon struggle filled with sacrifice, counter-sacrifice, and a relentless endgame grind. Firouzja emerged victorious, proving once again his ability to thrive in both chaos and control. In round 2 of the Sinquefield Cup, Gukesh faced Nodirbek Abdusattorov in a fiery Spanish opening. White castled early, but black immediately lashed out with knight takes e4 and a bold pawn thrust to d4. The tension exploded on move 11 when black shoved the pawn all the way to d3, cramping white and threatening chaos. For a moment, it seemed the initiative was all black's. After queenside castling, black's pieces swarmed forward, and when knight takes e5 landed, white looked in danger. But Gukesh fought back with a daring pawn to a4 and the powerful knight to g5, keeping the attack alive. The game turned with sparkling knight sacrifice, knight to a7 check, forcing the king into the corner, followed by knight takes c6. White's knights danced with precision, and suddenly it was black who was on the defensive. The middle game was pure mayhem. Black pushed pawns with h5 and h4, trying to rip open lines, but white's coordination never faltered. The critical blow came when rook takes e4 forced a queen exchange into a brutal endgame. From there, white's queen and rook hunted relentlessly. The queen checked on a6, scooped up pawns on b6 and c6, and with every move the noose tightened. Black's last hope came with pawn to d2, but it was too little, too late. Finally, after white's rook landed on d2 and queen to g2 followed, black's attack evaporated. On move 50, facing unstoppable threats, black resigned. A brilliant display of resilience and calculation, Gukesh turned early pressure into a sparkling victory, taking down Abdusattorov in style.